I'd like to call the order of the City of Joliet pre-council meeting for Monday, September the 15th, 2014. Mayor Thomas Girani presiding.
Roll call.
Start with roll call. Mayor Girani.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman McFarland.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Odekirk.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here. Jeff.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, if we could ask your indulgence in moving a certain item up to the top of the agenda if we could, and that would be the item number 2 on the pre-council agenda is a presentation by Egan Marine. Gary Davidson, a local attorney, is here representing Egan Marine. Gary?
Hi, my name is Jim Caparelli, and I'm here representing Egan Marine Corporation. And what we're looking to do here is be able to occupy a property on right on the river. And it's currently deeded by the Homeland Defense to the City of Joliet for use as Homeland Defense property. What Egan Marine proposes to do is it's vacant right now. It's a hazard to the community. It's run down. The basement is flooded. There's holes in the floor where people can actually drop through. And so what we propose is to take that property or with your consent and lease it, or not lease it, but
It'll be a license agreement.
A licensing agreement from the City of Joliet, and turn it into a marine security facility.
Excuse me, can you speak into the mic a little bit better?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Which is
so
regulated
much.
by the
You can pull it up if you'd like to.
okay, which is regulated by the U.S. Coast Guard, and that's part of Homeland Defense. Additionally, we would provide the remediate the property, which is contains various environmental hazards, and from its use previously as a military facility. So we would clean that up at no expense to the City of Joliet. We will add 30 jobs over the next 5 years at that location, if we're given that opportunity. We would also would like to point out that these people are a hazardous response company. So any spills or anything that happens in Joliet or on the waterway, these are the people that are normally called anyway, oftentimes by larger contractors, the subcontractors, to be first responders. In addition to that, they would like to train selected first responders in the City of Joliet at no cost to the City of Joliet, because they have to do the training to be emergency first responders to hazardous waste. So they would like to do that as well, and that's again at no cost because they have to undergo the training. Additionally, they would purchase at no cost to the City of Joliet an emergency response boat. This is a Go Fast or a Rigid, which can be used by the City of Joliet for whatever purposes they so desire. They will buy it, maintain it, and locate it at that property inside that secure facility. So we would, in effect, take a derelict property, put it back on the tax rolls, provide jobs, and clean it up, all at no expense to the City of Joliet. We believe that's a win-win. We believe that that's something that the city officials would support us on doing, and we believe that it keeps in with the spirit and the letter of the law in terms of the agreement with the Homeland Defense. Gentlemen?
Jeff, how close is that to where we're tunneling underneath the river?
It's adjacent to the tunneling site, but I don't believe that, and Mr. Egan can add additional information if necessary, but the tunneling operation will not require the entirety of this site. I believe that we do want to make a portion of the site, and the site's fairly large, we do want to make a portion of the site available to the contractors, because this will be a complex undertaking that will take some time, and we certainly need to prioritize that project. I can give a little bit of additional history on both their proposal and the property itself. This site has been owned by the federal government for a long, long time. It used to be a fairly active site but the federal government stopped using it and it became surplus property. There was a grant opportunity maybe 4 or 5 years ago that was pursued by the police department where the property could be conveyed from the United States to the city of Joliet, provided that the property were to be used for homeland security and law enforcement purposes, basically. And so the city council at that time approved the transaction. The police department intended to utilize the property for evidence storage, whether it be the site is large and it's a good location for outdoor storage of seized vehicles and things like that. There's also, at the time, there were 2 buildings on site, a metal building and then a masonry building that could also be used for indoor evidence storage of vehicles and other items that the city is required to keep custody of during the prosecution of criminal cases. Funding for that project disappeared with the economy a few years ago, and so that project really hasn't proceeded. Egan Marine, in consultation with Councilman Odekirk, has been discussing this proposal with staff. Mr. Hawk has met with Egan Marine on a number of occasions to discuss the financial conditions of some sort of arrangement. I don't know if those discussions were ever finalized. One of the major issues that probably held a transaction from moving forward is a potential legal limitation on the use of the property by non-law enforcement entities. We'll need to work through that. When we accept a title, the deed includes a restriction on the leasing of the property to a third party. And so the lawyers will have to figure out a way where FEMA could approve any transaction, assuming we can get to a good business arrangement with the company.
Can we get an interpretation from FEMA, whether or not this is a viable?
It would be staff's recommendation that we not enter into any agreement for the use of the site without FEMA's knowledge and concurrence.
Mayor?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. The issue boils down to, well, there's a couple of things. I've been working with Egan Marine since earlier this year when we did identify this property. There's been several hurdles that city staff has put up. Every hurdle has been overcome by Egan Marine, but yet they're still spinning their wheels. Regarding the issue with FEMA, the bottom line is, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the city bought this property from the federal government for $1. There were contingencies that were placed upon that transfer of property, one of which is that the city is supposed to provide a report to the federal government yearly showing what's been done with the property. As far as I know, that hasn't been done. We're not in compliance with that. It's my understanding FEMA doesn't want the property. There's environmental issues that are going to cost the city money or cost Egan Marine money if they're willing to go in and redevelop it. Furthermore, since we took the property in 2008, I would encourage people to go walk on it because it would be trespassing, but the property is unsecured. I've been on the property. The state of the property is in complete disrepair. The building has essentially been gutted. All the copper's been stripped out of there, all the metal. There are literally, as you walk through, there are holes in the floor with an 8-foot drop, presumably metal grates that were on over these holes that have been removed. There's train tracks that are in the process of being removed. Last time I was there, I think the thieves were unable to carry them out of there because of the weight. You have random barges tying up on that property. They don't belong to the city. It's completely unsecured. As I said, there's standing water in the basement. So the cost of whoever is going to go in and fix this property up, I believe it was estimated at about $1 million. We have a company that's willing to put their own money behind this. They believe through their attorneys, and I agree with their attorneys, that what they're proposing does fall within the FEMA regulations. They're willing to come in, fix up their property, put a dilapidated part of the city back, as they said, on the taxpayer, on the tax rolls, employ people, over 30 employees, and I think, I encourage them to come forward. I think this is something that we should be working with, and our staff should be working with them. I don't see any other real use for that property, certainly not in the condition it's in. I don't know where we're going to get the money to do the things that need to be done to get the property back up to standard. Now, at one point during the summer, the issue came up, and Chief Benton and I had spoken about it, regarding the wishes that the police use that property to store squad cars or store evidence. There's an issue there. Obviously, we were unable to secure the building as it is. I don't know how we could secure evidence. or squad cars there. But beyond that, it was proposed to Egan Marine that they buy another commercial property within the city of Joliet, and they lease that property to the city for the police department to have the use which they originally wanted, which is to store squad cars and evidence. They were provided a list, I believe, of 6 or 8 properties. They identified a property, a commercial property on Cherry Hill Road. I met them out there. Egan Marine, it was for $600,000. Egan Marine was willing to buy that property and lease it back to the city. And then they were told by city staff that the city wasn't interested in the properties that they provided to them to go and look at. So I think that was the final shoe, or it dropped at that point. That's why they're here. So I'm glad they came forward. I think they have packets on their company that they should share with the council. I am requesting that this be sent to the Land Use Committee and that it could be vetted properly in the Land Use Committee. I just would call my colleagues' attention to the fact that until tonight, they've been unable even to get it to Land Use. It's been completely shut out. I have a copy.
Bob, don't get me wrong, I'm not against this, but I just want to make sure it's doable under the agreement with FEMA, that's all. And if it is, I don't have, what they propose, I don't have any problem with it. I just want to make sure that it's doable with the agreement with FEMA. And I suggest maybe we write a letter to them with the information and see what they say.
Well, I agree, but I think the bottom line is, it's their money. If they're going to invest that kind of money in this property, it's their risk, not ours.
Well, yeah, but if we have an agreement with FEMA and this is not doable under that agreement, then so be it. But if it is doable, then we can do it. But I think before we go forward, we probably need to find out from FEMA if it's doable.
And Gary Davidson with the Brumman Law Firm, now known as Castle Law. I have no problem working with Jeff on that. Jeff and I enjoy a very good relationship. We shouldn't have a problem insofar as the deed restriction on the conveyance to the city of Joliet has what's called the reversionary clause. So to the extent that the property is not being used for those purposes as set forth in the deed restriction, then the property would revert back. Councilman Odekirk has a very good point with respect to the risk that's being run here, because effectively the Illinois-Michigan Oil is taking on all the risk, because currently as it sits, the city of Joliet owns a property where there's been no Phase 1 environmental study done. So we don't know if there's environmental conditions leaching into the canalway. We don't know what environmental conditions are under there. I prepared a license agreement, which I'll send over to Jeff. I didn't have a chance to talk to Jeff before tonight, but it'll be a license agreement whereby the city licenses our use of that property, and we agree to, at our cost, on our dime, take a blighted property that's located within the downtown area of Joliet, clean it up, fix it up, put it back on the tax rolls, put citizens to work that don't have jobs. And for anybody who doesn't know where this property is, it sits more or less adjacent to that Gallagher property as you head over Briggs Street and head westbound on Old Route 6. But this is actually a win-win for all parties. It's a win for the community. For those of you who don't know, I had a chance to go out to Illinois-Michigan Oil. They have a facility in Lamont. The city of Joliet serves as a very key area for the barge traffic way. Illinois-Michigan performs services for one of my clients, ExxonMobil, where these barges need to be fixed. They need to stop. And so when those people get off the barge, they're coming and shopping for food in our community. They're spending money in our community. And that's a good thing for the city of Joliet. I'm excited about it. My firm has a vested interest in Joliet. We're one of the oldest firms in town. So I think that there's something that through a cooperative relationship with the city of Joliet, we can have something positive for everybody. And we're just here to explain that.
Like I say, I agree with. I think it's a great project, but first I got to see what FEMA has to say, if in fact it's doable under the agreement we have. Jeff, you?
Certainly, I don't think anybody should invest any serious money unless we know that the federal government has approved whatever form of transaction is being proposed. I also want to add that I believe staff's last contact with the company on this project is we had found a potential, if this site wouldn't work for legal reasons, or if we couldn't reach some sort of business understanding, we certainly wanted to assist in helping this company, which I believe is losing its current location, to find another Joliet location. And last we had heard, we thought there was an opportunity at a location in Joliet up by Young's Road, a company that was subdivided, or a piece of property that was in the city and subdivided recently. It was proposed for redevelopment by a Chicago area developer. There was a port facility that was available on site that was used by the prior owner, but would be of no use to the industrial redevelopment. It was our understanding, and so we sent you there.
We went there, and you know, we did go there, and it turns out that they had no intention of relinquishing the port part. They just had the other, which is non-usable for any traffic. So it wasn't quite, when we got there, it was a little bit different than what had been explained to us, in that we would be able to get the port facilities. They said, "Oh, absolutely not. We still use this."
Yeah, we had contacted the buyer of the site. Now, I guess the buyer has since walked away, but the buyer of the site may have had different intentions for the property than the current owner, who now has lost the deal. But at the time, it looked like that deal was going to proceed. We just never heard how that discussion.
Right, and I'd like to also come on record and say that, you know, we haven't currently lost our position yet in Lamont either. So, I mean, that's still, we're going to probably sign that lease deal here shortly in the next month or two. So that'll be put to rest. But we still are very interested in moving here. There's so much potential here for things to be done. And we do keep FEMA. The part of it is it's Homeland Defense. I've been stationed at the Pentagon. I've dealt with these issues, and I just recently returned from active duty. I know that we meet the spirit and the intent of that agreement, and to put a marine security facility there, that the Eagans, if you look through your books, you will see that they have worked with various SWAT teams on response to when somebody would hijack a boat, and you'll see pictures of some of the Egan people there and local law enforcement. So we do that training, and that is more than sufficient to meet some of the FEMA requirements. In addition to the first response, you'll have an emergency response boat there, and right now, it's doing nothing. So, you know, they'll be more than ecstatic to have something like that take place. But when we engage with FEMA, it's like any large government agency, is that they want you to build it and then they'll approve it, not we'll look at your plans. So you're kind of at the chicken and the egg stage. So, you know, based on my experience, I believe that the way the agreement is currently written by Mr. Davidson and his firm, it's a tremendous agreement, and it's helpful for the city. We can move forward and meet all those requirements easily, and they'll be more than happy to have it. We're going to conduct a training here where a barge is going to be set on fire, and you know, the crews have to practice to set those barges on fire. We welcome the city fire department to come in and take part in that. And that is some of the things that meet that Homeland Defense requirement. And you want a flaming barge, you know, floating down, you know, downtown Joliet, and does it happen? Yeah, barges do on occasion from time to time have fires. So,
Speaking for myself only, I think it's a great idea, but I just want to find out if it's doable. And if it's doable, I don't know what kind of agreement you wrote up.
okay,
Is that
yes, sir.
okay?
Yes,
I don't know, but if it's doable,
Right.
let's do it. That's
Let's
the
do it,
only
right.
concern I have.
Okay.
Question. Did I understand right that Egan Marine, they do with toxic spills?
Yes. Yes,
So
we do.
recently we had a diesel spill from an old barge that occurred or some kind of, what was the spill from, Jeff? Do you remember? Just recently?
The boat that tipped.
The boat, that was it, right.
Yeah, I think
So they would respond to something like that if
They
called upon.
absolutely would respond to something like that. They have just recently correct me if I'm wrong, a tugboat sank. A tugboat sank just a few weeks ago, and or about a week ago, and these were the guys they called to get that taken care of immediately, and to cordon it off, make sure that we aren't leaking fuel into the water, and have that tugboat raised.
And additionally, if I understand correctly, if we don't move forward, as the Councilman Odekirk has suggested, land use give our attorney an opportunity to sit down and finalize an agreement and possibly even move forward on some remediation and starting the project. At that point, that's when FEMA, from your experience, having worked at the Pentagon, would step in
Right,
and say
they're
yes
going to
or no.
want to, they're going to want to see that there's a secure marine security facility, that is overseen, inspected, and certified by the Coast Guard and comes by on a regular basis. And the Coast Guard is part of, falls under Homeland Defense. They don't actually fall under the Department of Defense, they fall under Homeland Defense.
Well, if I follow this correctly, then, so if we do that, and we come to an agreement with Jeff Plyman and the city votes on it, we move forward, you remediate the site, you start to build on it, you secure it, right? Worst case scenario, if FEMA says no, you give it back to us.
Right.
The agreement's off.
That's exactly what the
And the
agreement
Marines
says.
willing
That's
to take
correct.
that risk on advice of their account.
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, let me jump in a little bit. The penalty, I couldn't recommend to the council that we undertake any business transaction of this nature and have such a big open issue on whether or not our approval of such transaction might result in a forfeiture of the property, which is the result. Would FEMA do it? That's up to them to decide, but I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't want to have our discussions completed or get to a state where we're pretty much ready to go, and then go see FEMA, get them to sign off, then come to you.
How close are we to that?
I don't know. You know, we haven't really sat down and had a meeting for a few weeks or a couple of months, so we have to get the proposed agreement. I think we sit down and have a business meeting and make a decision about how to proceed with FEMA and when, and that shouldn't take too long.
Shouldn't take too long, 2 weeks, a month?
I would say a few weeks, certainly.
Why don't we do this, Your Honor, if I can make a suggestion? It sounds like a great deal that you're proposing for the city. I like all the terms that you suggested, but in order to get this ball rolling quickly, I'll move to remand this to the Land Use Committee.
Second.
And what are they gonna do?
Well, they're going to hear it like any other zoning case. I mean,
But do they have an agreement? What are they gonna hear? We've heard I don't have any problem with it, but I just as soon have them sit down with Jeff, come down up with an agreement.
well, they will. I mean, they're going to sit down with Jeff, and then once they've done that, this is going to be remanded to the Land Use
Oh,
Committee.
okay.
And the committee
That's-
can then
okay.
bring it back.
That's the
That's
timeframe.
how all items should go to the
That's
committee.
you didn't explain. I thought they were gonna go, they don't have an agreement, so forth and so on, so.
Yeah,
That's
no,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine. That's good.
Motion seconded that this topic go to the Land Use and Legislative Committee meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, thank
Sure.
you, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I also could ask the council's indulgence with the agenda as printed, if I could move up the liquor licenses that are on the agenda. Jim?
Sure.
There should be two on your agenda tonight. Council Memo 46414, transfer of a Class B liquor license at Jackson Street, bottoms up, has been pulled. And we'll move on to Council Memo 46514. A public hearing was held on August 19th, 2014 for the requested transfer of shares within TGI Fridays, Inc. for their Class B liquor license at 3340 Mall Loop Drive, doing business as TGI Fridays, which is a privately held company. The company sold a minority amount of shares to outside investors, and that's what you're being asked to consider to approving the sale of those shares. TGI Fridays will remain the holder of this liquor license, and their resident manager will not change. Nothing changes. No citizens appeared in opposition at the hearing. There were no outstanding monies owed to the city. The police, fire, and building departments recommend approval of the license transfer. Joliet Police stated there have been calls for service to this address, but their current reporting software doesn't break down the calls to specific businesses at the mall. However, they do not see any law enforcement problems associated with this transfer, and the Liquor Commission also recommends approval of the transfer. Attorney for TGI Fridays is with me here if you have any questions.
Questions? None. You wanna give a brief explanation, Jim? Why the other one was pulled?
Both attorneys for the current licensee and the person who wanted to transact, or complete the transaction and buy the bar, they still have a few minor details, financial things that need to work out. And if you had voted on it and approved it, it would have gone through, and technically it would have gone through without the transaction being done. So
Mayor,
probably will be on the next one.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. When I was reading that in the packet or on the iPad, I would like to see the calls for services
Absolutely.
from the police department, anything else. from
Or
that
TGI Fridays or?
No, no, no.
for-
The bottom's up, the one that was pulled
Crybabies.
from the agenda, because I was reading that, and I would like to see what types of calls for service there was.
Absolutely.
Thank
We'll
you.
get that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Jeff?
With that, if we could, we do have a citizen to be heard. I don't see Robert in the room today. Maybe he'll.
Oh, there he is.
Jeff Hughes.
Robert, we'll get to you as soon as the agenda is complete. So turning to the agenda, we have the consent agenda items consisting of regular payrolls, current bills, treasurer's report. There's also two items that are somewhat noteworthy. The first item being the Council Memo 43614, which is authorization for the holding of what's called in the council memo a reverse auction for the purchase of natural gas. This item's going to the Finance Committee tomorrow, but essentially this is something that we started a few years ago, and it's a way to use the internet to streamline our natural gas purchasing process and to allow alternative suppliers other than the utilities themselves to make bids and to compete against each other in an internet-based auction process that should generate a fairly good price for the city. There are some options here as far as what length of contract we'll enter into. It ranges from 6 months to 24 months. A decision on that will be made after we see the proposed bids. We do use the services of a local consultant, Raymond Pasteris. His fees are paid for by World Energy, who conducts the reverse auction. Approval of this item would authorize the city manager to enter into a contract from either 6 to 24 months based on the best deal that the reverse auction produces for the city.
Any questions? Jeff?
Okay. We also have on the consent, the final item on the consent agenda is position vacancy, a patrol officer position. Administration is requesting permission to fill an open position due to a pending retirement and to fill any other subsequent vacancies as well.
Yes.
That's the consent agenda.
Jeff, could you clarify in this memo, there's a mention in here about, for a point of clarification for the appointment of corporation counsel, accounting manager?
Right, those are two positions that will be open soon. And you've already authorized the city manager to fill those positions.
Correct.
And I think there might have been a glitch in our standard documentation on these types of items. Traditionally, the manager has been authorized to not only fill the position that will be open, but if it's filled internally, creating another open position, that the manager doesn't have to come back to fill that internal vacancy. The manager can fill them both. And that's what's being clarified here.
Thank you.
With that, we go to the public hearing portion of the agenda. The first item is Council Memo 43914. We will have a public hearing tomorrow night. I don't know, I believe the petitioners are here and they've asked to address the council. This is a proposed amendment to an annexation agreement which would allow the redevelopment of 2800 Schweitzer Road into a medical cannabis cultivation center. And certainly we've heard a lot in the media lately about these types of land uses. And Sylvia Mikas, a local, Chicago attorney, local family, represents the proposed developers. And as the council knows, the city has modified its zoning ordinance to allow this type of use in an industrial district provided it complies with state law. We've approved a dispensary within the city. We have 2 cultivation centers proposed for approval tonight. The state is in the middle of their licensing process. A deadline for filing for a cultivation center with the state of Illinois looms very soon.
Next Monday.
Okay, and so these fine people are trying to get their ducks in a row with the state by getting their zoning approved in advance of their application. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Micas.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Durante and members of the council. Again, my name is Sylvia Micas. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Chico and Nunez, located at 333 West Wacker Drive in Chicago, Illinois. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, AgriCare LLC, doing business as AgriCare Labs. Here with me today are Glenn Taylor, President of AgriCare, Dan Emmons, Chief Operating Officer, Scott Turner, Mechanical Engineer for AgriCare, Frank Malahy of FH Passion, and Mike Dom of Rudiger and Tonelli. The applicant is again seeking to purchase the property located at 2800 Schweitzer Road. The subject property contains 19.2 acres and is partially improved with a 16,000 square foot building which currently operates as Leisure Hours Raceway. It also contains approximately 100 parking spaces and the remainder of the property is vacant. The subject property is located in the I-1 Light Industrial District and the adjacent properties are also zoned I-1 and IT Intermodal Terminal District. The applicant is seeking to establish a medical cannabis cultivation center within the existing 16,000 square foot building as phase one of its proposed development. With this phase, 100 local union jobs will be created. Dependent on patient demand, the applicant will construct a new 107,000 square foot building as part of phase two of its development. We anticipate that phase two will create an additional 100 or more local union jobs. The proposed site meets all of the distance requirements as stipulated in both the Illinois Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Pilot Program Act and the City of Joliet's ordinance. As part of our due diligence, we reached out to and received support from CPX Sports located across Schweitzer Road and also contacted Centerpoint, whose intermodal terminal is located close to the property. Now, before I turn the presentation over to Glenn and Dan, I would like to give you a brief background about AgriCare's principles. Most importantly, I would like to share with you a little bit about AgriCare's CEO and founder, Ethan Ruby. Unfortunately, due to recent health constraints, Ethan could not return to Joliet and join us today. In 2001, Ethan was a young professional working in Manhattan. While walking across the street, a driver ran a red light and striking Ethan, resulting in severe injury to his spinal cord. So at the beginning of that fateful day, Ethan was an active young professional, and by the end of the same day, he had become a T6 paraplegic. After suffering through his recovery and years of opiate use, Ethan moved his family to Colorado and was finally able to be free of opiates and learn firsthand the benefits of medical cannabis. Ethan's experience as a patient ignited a passion to initiate groundbreaking research and new development. Ethan and Dan Emmons founded a company by the name of TheraPlant, which operates a medical cannabis cultivation center in Watertown, Connecticut. TheraPlant was the highest scoring cultivation center to be awarded a license by the state of Connecticut, which is one of the most stringent states to legalize medical cannabis. Many of the companies that are seeking medical cannabis cultivation permits from the state of Illinois have experience in the state of Colorado, yet few have experience in other states, such as TheraPlant, and now the principals that are hopefully bringing it to the state of Illinois. Glenn Taylor, our president, brings a vast experience to AgriCare as well, due to over 20 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. It is with this experience and knowledge of the industry that Ethan, along with Dan, Glenn, and Scott, seek to bring an A-plus cultivation center to the city of Joliet. Again, not only to bring economic development, but to bring relief to patients facing similar debilitating conditions as Ethan. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Glenn Taylor.
Thank you, Sylvia. My name is Glenn Taylor. I live in Libertyville, Illinois. It's a little bit of a hike from here, but not too bad. Mayor and council members, we bring to you AgriCare Labs, and I'll do a quick presentation. I'm not going to go through all the history of medical cannabis or what the state's requiring, because I think you've all done a deep dive on that, so I'll spare you that. But of course, we'll be available to answer any questions that you might have. So as I walk through the presentation, one of the things I'll do is also point out the things at TheraPlant, which is the operation that Ethan founded in Connecticut. A lot of pictures of what's going on there as recent as last week. So you can see firsthand sort of the proof that this is more than just wishes, but it's actually something that we are doing today. There's a picture of Ethan, obviously on the left, and he's doing well, but he's had a few surgeries because of his paraplegia, basically to upgrade some of the rods and some of the original surgeries from 13 years ago. And so he's just now in the process of recovery. About AgriCare, founded by Ethan, and I think the last bullet, the top scoring applicant in Connecticut in that process. We're really proud of that because it's hard to be the first and the best, but that's what we represent. And we've received a letter of really good standing from the state of Connecticut, from the commissioner of the DCP, which is their consumer protection group, who sits and works for the governor. So we're very happy that we're actually continuing to be very compliant and on target with all the things we're trying to do. Cannabis, interestingly, now can be relieved in many other ways than smoking, which is always a concern because a lot of sick people, frankly, have pulmonary disease. So it's a concern, but now it's available in pill form, in oils, as we've seen with the so-called Charlotte's Web, which is really for kids. There's a lot of different ways that cannabis can be consumed. And interestingly, in the state, there are, as you know, 41 debilitating medical conditions that cannabis is approved for. And that's actually quite profound. I've been in the drug industry for 20 years. It is rare to have a drug approved for more than 1, 2, 3, 4 conditions. 41 is extraordinary. Well, one of the things we'd like to do as AgriCare Labs, the labs portion of it, is really do some groundbreaking research and determine how much of this is anecdotal and how much of this is real. And to do that, you really have to do some fundamental research, the kind that really hasn't been done in America yet. It's being done in Israel, it's being done in Europe, it's being done in Canada. We'd like to bring that with us in our application. So that's a very important part of what we're about. Our capital investment will be about $8 to $10 million on phase 1. That will add to the local tax base, we think, quite nicely. It'll create, as Sylvia said, 100 union jobs in the first phase. We think about 100 permanent jobs that range in salary from 30, 35 on the low end to about 120 on the high end. And that would be by the end of the 3rd year. So we'll ramp up to that position, as Sylvia said, based on the growth in patient demand, which is the big unknown. We don't know how many patients are going to sign up for these medical cards. In terms of the site, there's sort of the cross-section of 80 and 55, so you can get a sense of where it is by the Des Plaines River. And then there's a close-up of the site that we'll be developing and the actual 2 phases. On the far right side, the existing 1-story, 16,000 square foot structure that we'll renovate in the first phase, and then the larger site, 100 to 107,000 square feet, that will go to in phase 2.
Can you go back a slide?
Yes. At the retention pond on the left, the racetrack is, as you can see it on the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the floor plan of the expansion of the second site, and what we do is we try to expand by adding grow rooms. There's propagation, there's a lot of industry terminology. Propagation's where you start the plant. The grow rooms is where we divide it up so that we have one manager or lead person, 4 other people in there observing the plants on a daily basis and inspecting to make sure they're free of contaminants, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's really important because what you want to do is make sure you can replicate this process over and over again. Once the patients start on this product, they want to know that the next time they get the exact same effect. So that's critically important. So we're all about replicating. And in fact, we have a partnership with UIC, proposed partnership with UIC, to bring their quality control folks who are not only top in the state, they're some of the top in the country in terms of producing drugs from plants. Very important that we have that expertise at our fingertips right down the street. This is how it looks from just a compartmentalized standpoint. So you can kind of see from the color coding, the green rooms are the rooms that will have cannabis. The very lightest green is where they're propagated or started, and then the darker green are where they actually grow. And then there's a lot of other rooms around there, and I'll show you some pictures in a second. We're very compliant with the ADA. I mean, being founded by a T6 paraplegic, you would think that that goes without saying, but it's a lot of the little things. For example, when you walk into an office, you want it a little wider than normal, because if somebody comes in with a wheelchair on a typical office today, they scrape their hands. So there's a lot of little things, the carpet and how that sits. We're going to hire a lot of disabled. We have a number of partnerships with disabled firms, disability firms that'll help us in the hiring. Well, some of the disabled have problems with patterns and colors and lighting. So there's a lot of things that are going into really a precision way that we're developing this property. Safety and security is critically important. We'll have well over 100 cameras inside, outside. The property will be entirely fenced in. No one from the public is ever allowed in the property, ever. No salesmen, no people. No, it's a very secure facility, and it has to be that way. Once the employees come in, they don't leave through their shift, so they bring their lunches in. They're just completely secure, and part of that is the reason that we're very comfortable that we can operate a facility like this with all the conditions and all the rules, and we're doing it in Connecticut. Is a biometric scan, so once you get in the facility and get past security, in order to get into the areas that have the cannabis, you have to be approved, and the biometric scan will dictate and tell us that you're approved for that. And then, of course, we have 24/7 security officers that'll be on site watching the cameras, monitoring it during the time that we're actually operating, but of course when we're not as well. This is what the grow in Connecticut actually looks like as of last week. Very healthy plants. And it's because of our ventilation and lighting system, we're assuring that there'll never be any air pollution, if you will. There won't be any smells emanating outside the facility. This is being done hydroponically in a totally enclosed facility. Masonry, so we're not even doing it with what you typically call a greenhouse effect. We've decided to go a step further. And the lighting is critically important because in essence, what you're trying to do is replicate the power of the sun. You can't, but you can get pretty close with the way that the lighting is designed these days. So that's very important. That's the picture of our ventilation. We sort of screened out what makes it really unique for us, but you get the idea. And then this is what the raw bud, if you will, looks like. And this is sort of how the finished product will then be packaged up and shipped to the dispensaries. The dispensaries do not have the ability to repackage. So they'll receive it from us in the way that it'll be then sold to the patients. So we're behind all that processing. And it's stored in a vault, and we've chosen a DEA approved vault, extremely safe and secure with multiple levels of security, even to get in the vault in the finished product. So with that, I want to thank you and leave it open to questions, and bring the team up for the questions you might have. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. You know, I'm curious. Well, first the question to Jeff. They've met all our standards, right? What we need.
Yes,
That's it. And then, you know, we approve them, they go on in the state, and the state's got their own vetting process.
that's correct.
For the final. I am curious, a lot of security, very impressive. Two questions. You said you blurred out the ventilation system. Is that like a proprietary trade secret?
Yeah. Dan, in fact, Dan's the chief operating officer. I'll let
How's everybody doing tonight?
How you doing?
Dan Emmons, Chief Operating Officer. We've taken a lot of painstaking effort to design our HVAC system to not only filter any air coming in to keep out contaminants, but also filter the air going out so there's no smells leaving the building. And it's a custom system that we designed. It's very proprietary.
Okay. And as a matter of security, one other question. I see you have a lot of security. this may sound very simple-minded. What's in place to make sure somebody doesn't put a few leaves in their pocket? How does that work?
Well, in our system, it's a great question. In our system that we're bringing here, that we're using in Connecticut, when an employee comes in, they go into a locker room and they change into pocketless attire. They have to be then screened by security before they're given their swipe card, which they need in conjunction with the biometric system to access the back. With that card, they're only limited to whatever rooms we allow them to go in for that day. And then when they leave, they can't leave until they are screened by the security guard, who checks their socks or pats them down if they feel like it's necessary, and then they're allowed out of the back to go change again. So, a redundant process.
I was just curious,
Yeah.
on those two issues.
And again, part of that is we have a 64,000 square foot facility in Connecticut. We're only currently using just under 40,000 square feet. We have 130 cameras for that just under 40,000 square feet, and there'll be 190 cameras when it's fully built out.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just have a question. Is there any way you can pull the slide back up where you were showing all the forms of the drug? That's the one. It's not on my screen though.
We have no such.
The one to the right, the green, is that what the oil is in? Or what is that one?
The oils are the very close, in the middle,
No.
the really small, tiny ones.
Here, it's on your screen now, Jen.
Oh, it's on my screen now. Okay.
The long green one?
The long green all the way to the right, you have it in a cylinder container, and then it looks like a pen.
Yeah, that's a mock-up of a vaporizer pen that takes the oil form and vaporizes it. It heats it up and turns it into a vapor for inhalation.
It's all within that container. It heats it
Correct.
up, so when you spray it, it's heated and the vapor comes out.
It heats it internally. You almost hit it like it's like an e-cigarette. You almost pull on it like an
Okay.
e-cigarette, and it turns it into vapor. So you're not smoking
Drawing smoke.
the plant material. It's just heating the medicinal part.
All right, and then you have at the top, like the green crushed leaves. That's what it looks like to me. And how is that used?
That's the raw cannabis.
That's the raw
usually
cannabis?
rolled and smoked or pipes or.
They can roll their own and put it in a pipe or something like that. Okay, I'm just curious about all these different forms. That's why I'm asking. And then in the middle, just below that, diagonally, they have little green tops on it. What?
Those are replacements for the vaporizer.
For the
pen that you
vaporizer?
first asked about.
For the pen, okay. And the other ones are cigarettes that you have here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then and the pill forms to the right. And then how do you distribute the oil form? Or is that for the vaporizer?
The oils for the vaporizer and those little, and the ones on the bottom to the left, the oil would be in there.
Okay, and that's how you refill that?
It would be a capsule that would be screwed onto the top of the vaporizer, so you could replace it when the vaporizer.
And is that the only way you can ingest the oil is through that vaporizer?
No, there are other ways. It's just not shown on this
Okay.
slide right now, but you can add it to, people can bring it home and add it to edibles. They can just put it in
Brownies?
some drops. Yeah, there's lots.
Okay.
We are not going to be processing food, even though it's part of what the statute calls for. We're going to start ours out without going to the edibles, because we just think that's probably the highest risk in terms of it getting into the wrong hands, kids and brownies or cookies or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, we're very concerned about that.
And just an off question, you mentioned that the employees would be bringing their lunches in. Is there any place, like, vending machines for these folks as well? Because what if somebody forgets their lunch or something? Which happens, so what do? They can't leave, they can't come back? I'm just thinking about the employees.
Jimmy.
No deliveries, nothing. That's why how does that work?
Actually, in Connecticut, we do have a little bit of food for them to snack on, and we've also offered that if they do it every once in a while, management will go out and bring them back lunch. We didn't want to make a habit of it because.
Well, no, it's pretty tight security. That's why I was curious, because they're going to be union employees, and they have to have a lunch, and they have to be able to have food.
Yeah, we'll most likely have vending machines
built.
once
I didn't say
it
it was
gets
gonna
up
be union.
to that point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay.
See you tomorrow night.
Good luck.
Mr. Mayor, next on the agenda, Council Memo 44014 is another proposed annexation and approval of a special use permit that would allow the property to be used as a medical cannabis cultivation center. Different proposed operator who also brought a team tonight to make a presentation to the council. I didn't catch a name, but whoever wants to make the presentation, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Griffin. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Shane Banks in Chicago, here representing Cresco Labs LLC. Cresco is here seeking annexation and an annexation agreement and zoning and a conditional use to operate also a cannabis cultivation center. The property is at 23224 Center Point Way. It is located in an area surrounded by other industrial zoning and the IT intermodal terminal zoning. So the property is appropriate for this type of warehouse use. It will not have any negative impact on the surrounding properties. It's relatively light as far as traffic and ingress from the facility. There really won't be very many heavy trucks that are going in and out. Most of the product is going to be moved via van and box truck, so relatively light impact for an industrial use. The site right now is vacant, except for a trailer that's on the site. So if the zoning is approved and the state approves the application, a new facility will be constructed in order to perform the cultivation. That will have to be done so immediately. As you may be aware, the state has requirements where if the recipients of these licenses have 180 days to get their facility up and running. So we would have to immediately begin construction and begin the growing process in order to comply with that requirement.
Excuse me. So if you get the license, you've got 180 days to build a building and get it up and running?
Correct. You can ask for an extension, but you certainly are going to need to move immediately. So we'll have to have all the due diligence completed, and once we get word, if we are so fortunate to get the license, we have to immediately begin the construction. So we believe that this is an excellent use for this property. It will be annexed to the city, and we're requesting industrial zoning. And also with me today is Dominic Sergi and Joe Caltabiano with Cresco Labs. And Joe will give you a little more background on the company and its operation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Evening, City Council. My name is Joe Caltabiano. I'm the president of Cresco Labs. Just to give you a little background on us, we are a group of Illinois businessmen that have put together a consortium to begin the process of applying for the medical marijuana license. We are a group that's 90% owned by Illinois folks. The reason there's a slight disparity there is we went out and interviewed approximately 30 growers throughout the country, looking for the best one to partner with that would become our operational partner for the first couple of years. We've traveled to various states, East Coast, West Coast. We landed on a group called Denver Relief out of Colorado. They will be an equity partner with our firm. They will be the feet on the ground for the first couple of years as we learn this process and hire local folks to take over this ultimate facility. We will be constructing roughly a 40,000 square foot new facility, working with union labor. Our partners are, my partner Dominic Sergi comes from a union background. His family owns a very large union electric company, employing roughly 450 people in the state of Illinois. We will be using union labor to construct this facility. We are Illinois people. Currently, myself and our partners, through our various other enterprises, currently employ roughly 1,100 employees in Illinois. So it's very important for us that this is something that is an Illinois business. We feel there's qualified people who can come in, put this facility up, run this facility with some outside work, but ultimately make this something that Illinois owns. Myself personally, what brought us to this process was I was a cancer survivor. I had leukemia. as growing up. I sit on various boards of Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, very involved in St. Jude. I've been around what cancer does to patients. Unfortunately, it's a devastating disease. Not that marijuana is set to cure the cancer piece. Oncologists cure cancer with any means necessary. What they don't treat is the side effects from chemotherapy and radiation. You see a great relief from a product like medical cannabis. Our focus will be similar to what you've heard from AgriCare. We're not looking to produce products such as lollipops and such like that. We're looking to produce a very medical, repetitive type products where, similar to a Tylenol, when you take 2 Tylenol, you want that repeated event over and over and over every day of the week. That's the type of products that we're looking to set forth. Again, to talk a little bit more about the ingestion methods, if someone is sick and has sores and such like that, smoking is not typically something that's a pleasant thing. So we will create sublingual tablets that'll dissolve in your mouth, patches, and other ingestible forms. We've gone so far as bringing on partners in various industries. Our security will be run by former special agent in charge of the FBI, SAC leader for Detroit. He has partners with Homeland Security. Security, again, is of paramount importance both for us as well as the state of Illinois. Our facility will be to the level that NSA uses for security. Biometric access, double key cards, various forms of security will be of paramount importance. We also are very intrigued by the research side of this. We went out and brought on other advisors, such as a professor from University of Illinois. As funny as it sounds, his actual science is weed science, which is pretty unique, and you'll see that on his resume. Different kind of weed, but he is an agricultural expert. So we will be researching the actual product as well, how to make it more consistent, how to make it more repetitive, and the goal is to standardize this industry. That wraps up the majority of our presentation. If you guys have questions, we're certainly here to answer them.
Weed science?
I know.
Interesting. When I went to college, there was quite a few kids that were weed science. So essentially, Jeff, do they meet all of our standards within our ordinance?
It does.
It does.
It will.
And I appreciate you shared a lot of information with us, but the types of delivery methods and such, so forth, the security requirements, that's all done by the state, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Good morning.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Mayor, before these guys leave, if I can address one other issue that came up today, and it's not covered by the council memo, but I think I want to make sure the council's aware of this. Unlike the last project, this site is not currently within the city of Joliet. It's owned by a woman by the name of Annette Bates. That's great. And her sale is contingent upon this company getting an Illinois license. And so they've asked for a contingency in the annexation agreement that if this company doesn't receive a license and therefore they do not proceed with the purchase of her property and she still owns it, it would be her wish to have the choice to undo the annexation, since there wouldn't be a development for the site. And so the annexation would provide a very narrow window in which she would have to exercise that right to undo the annexation.
This is a public hearing. Anybody else want to address these issues?
The actual public hearing is tomorrow night.
I figured if they want to.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
There was
Thank you.
There was someone
Thank
in
you.
the audience.
There was some.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
She had hers.
Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, just for the record, I asked Mr. Plyman if he could actually forward us a copy of the proposed agreement before the vote tomorrow, and he said he'll do it. So we'll have
I'll
some
send a copy of both agreements via email if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Would you want to wait till tomorrow? Okay, fine. Jeff?
All right. Our third public hearing is something that's been before the council today. There's a little twist on it. It's actually Council Memo 44114. It consists of 2 action items. Let me start with the second item. That's been here before, and that would be a resolution approving an economic development agreement with the Mickey Oil Company. And the new business item related to this is, in the event the city council chooses to enter into this agreement with Mickey Oil, this part of the agreement would include establishing what's called a business district on this site. The creation of a business district would allow the city to impose an additional 1% sales tax on convenience grocery items and alcoholic beverages inside the existing convenience store. All that was explained in the memo. I believe Mr. Hanson is here on behalf of the company, or he was.
Yeah, he's over there. Yeah, he's.
Okay, Mike, I don't know if you want to, we're on Kuska's. So I don't know if you wanted to address the council.
Yes, just very quickly, Mayor, members of the council. My client, Mr. McCush, is reviewing the agreement that Mr. Plyman prepared. We're going to get with Mr. Plyman tomorrow. We were supposed to be on the Finance Committee agenda. I see we're not, so I presume that's all taken care of. So we will stand ready to come to the council tomorrow night on the agreement.
And if I could summarize the changes since the last time this was before the council, what's now pending before you, and it's my last draft. Perhaps there will be a revision or two. That remains to be seen. But under the administration's last draft, there would be a 9-year economic incentive agreement. During that 9-year period, on the condition that the property generate a certain level of business tax revenue to the city, it would then be entitled to receive a partial rebate of the home rule sales tax on motor fuels for sales occurring at the site. If you recall, the idea behind the agreement was to help this company, which is located on the edge of Joliet, compete with gas stations not located within the city that pay different types of business taxes. So we're looking for a way to allow this company to compete on the sale of motor fuels, but not affect Joliet's overall tax revenues. And so the way the agreement would be structured, if approved by the council, is so long as the company met its business tax benchmark, it would be entitled to that partial sales tax rebate. If that did not occur, the first time that were to happen, then the city council would have the right to terminate the agreement. If it happened 2 years in a row, then under my proposed draft, the agreement would be terminated without further action of the city council. It would just happen. Of course, the business owner, every first and third Tuesday, has the opportunity to come here and ask for any consideration from the council. But that's the way the benchmark would be enforced, that there would be a phase out, that after the first year would be optional with the council, but after 2 consecutive years of not making the benchmark, the agreement would expire without further action unless the council wanted to change that outcome.
I got a question.
Question.
Who's dictating the benchmark?
The benchmark is something we can negotiate. What's been requested is the 2014, calendar year 2014 business taxes generated by the property. We don't have that number yet. It's something that we'll be able to calculate when 2014 is over. We'll see how much sales tax, how much motor fuel tax was generated at the site. And that would be the benchmark. And that would have to be the number that the company would have to make every year to avoid a termination of the agreement.
Can we compare that to the, say, 2 or 3 previous years?
We can get that information.
Yeah, please do.
I don't,
Make sure
I don't think
it's in the ballpark.
Yes, absolutely. The numbers we've seen, and some of this is proprietary, but the company is coming to a public forum and requests an incentive, so we have to discuss it in some form. If I did my math right, and I might not have, I believe the benchmark will be in the neighborhood of a little over $200,000. And that would be money Joliet received. It's not sales at the site that the owner receives. It's the tax revenue that Joliet receives. Property taxes are not part of that equation. It's just business taxes, sales taxes, motor fuel taxes, things of that nature.
Jan?
There's been several agreements that we've discussed, and the last one that I was up to date on was the one at the Finance Committee about a month or so ago, and it was, I believe, 3 to 10. So how does this, because of the benchmark now that has to be met, is that why the agreement's changed it back to 10 years?
Well, it's 9 years that's
Okay,
being
9
proposed. And I think what an earlier version proposed was just a 3-year agreement, because we have no idea how the tax revenues will evolve in the future. And under that previous draft, there wasn't an opportunity for the city on an annual basis to terminate the agreement. It was a 3-year trial period, and then we'd take it up again in 3 years to see if anything further needed to be done. During the course of that committee discussion, there were statements to the effect that there were other discussions that involved a longer period of time, and I think the thinking was the city could afford to provide the longer term if it had the ability on an annual basis to terminate the agreement if things weren't working out. And so, yes, it is a longer term, but you'll have the confidence of knowing that if the numbers aren't made, it could be a 1-year agreement, it could be a 2-year agreement. The burden is on the business owner to generate the tax revenues so the city doesn't fall behind where it is now.
Okay, and isn't this the only gas station in the city that is allowed to sell packaged liquor?
I think that's true.
So they're making money on that too.
Yes.
And now, since this is special use, this goes with the owner of the property. And as I was reading through all these pages, it says the owner. So it will go with the property. So if they sell the property, the new owner will also have this tax break. Is that correct?
The way the agreement's drafted, it's an agreement between the city and a business corporation called Mickey Oil Company. And should Mickey Oil Company sell the business to some other company, this would be a business asset, which under the current draft could pass along to the buyer.
Does it, but we don't have to approve it. It would just go to the new buyer, correct?
That's correct.
So, for example, say BP Oil wanted to buy that, even though he's renting, or he's in conjunction with BP Oil, he doesn't own it. Mickey owns BP, or the property.
I believe they're a franchisee of BP.
Okay.
That'd be my guess.
So if BP Oil wants to turn around and purchase this, they would get the same tax break.
Whoever would,
If they become the owner.
right. The business terms for the city really don't depend on who owns the company. The company has to generate a minimum number of tax dollars for the city. And if they do that, then we provide that parcel sales rebate to them because they still are generating for the city what they always have generated. We're trying to address a change in the economic and competitive climate for this one gas station on the edge of town competing with gas stations in other communities that have different tax structures. And we want to allow them to compete, but we don't want the overall revenues for the city to decline. And so you create the business district concept. They've rebranded. They believe they're going to do better economically with some of the business changes they intend to make at their risk. We'll see. We'll see. But the commitment from the city, or to the city rather, is that we will not lose our current level of tax revenue generated by that site. And if we do, then the city council can put the brakes on the entire arrangement.
Well, here's my problem with this. This is BP Oil, which is one of the highest priced oil companies and for gas per gallon, okay? Because they have to pay for all the oil spills that they've had in the past, especially the Gulf, and there was one in Indiana, which this other company, Illinois, Michigan Oil, had cleaned up for them. So with the competing gas stations around there, by giving a tax break, why are people going to go there to buy gas? It's still going to be the same price. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay. And then if this is sold, it's going to go to the next property owner. It's just going to go down the line. So I'm just a bit miffed because now we're going to be opening the door for all the other gas stations in town. They're going to want special use permits with tax breaks. So our revenue will go down because of one business that we're trying to save, and I commend them for being in town for so long. But I just don't understand how this is going to work, especially since they're the only gas station that has a packaged liquor license. I would think you'd be making money on that.
If I can answer that question, what you're going to find out tomorrow night in your example is, if that happens, the gas station is going to shut down. And the city of Joliet is going to lose a minimum of $50,000, if not more, in tax revenue. Period. Period. Now, if the council is willing to accept that, then I guess the council won't approve the agreement.
Yeah, but Mike, what's going to attract people to go there to buy gas when the surrounding gas stations are much cheaper than what they're charging?
What's going to attract?
What's going to attract them?
They're going to have to lower their price to match the price of Crest Hill because they can't make any money. They can't compete.
So you're
right
telling me
now the way it
BP is going to allow them to lower their gas prices?
He's got a separate agreement with BP. You know, that has nothing to do with this, okay? So, you know, he will then be able to lower his price to match that of Crest Hill in this particular situation. Because if it can't get done, then, you know, he can't sustain in keeping this business open. It's just simple mathematics.
But why aren't people just stopping there to buy packaged liquor?
Why are people stopping there? I don't know.
Because they're right on they got a good spot there, right on the corner
Of course it is, but
Plainfield
it's
and
far more
Larkin.
than just a packaged liquor store.
I understand. So I'm just not understanding how, by giving them the tax break, how that's gonna bring more people in unless they lower their gas prices down to the
They
bar.
will, exactly.
They will.
Sure, they'll have to lower the gas tax. They'll
That's-
have to meet the competition.
That's the basic strategy here, is to allow them to sell gas cheaper than they would otherwise, because they will be entitled to a rebate of the city home rule sales tax. Because they know they're getting that back, they can sell it at an artificially lower price on the sign.
To be competitive.
Right, and then the guarantee to the city comes in the form of the business district tax, which offsets the loss of home rule sales tax on motor fuel sales. Not completely though, because it's our belief that it's a gas station, so most of its taxable sales are motor fuels. And so the partial rebate is probably gonna outweigh what we get in the business district tax, so the burden's on them to generate more overall activity, so you have more sales tax generated at the site. The agreement might be difficult for them to achieve. They may not be able to make that benchmark.
What is the benchmark?
Well, the benchmark will be what we get in 2014 from that site,
Okay.
from business district taxes.
And if it's not,
And if-
it's not met.
That's what's proposed right now.
Well, I proposed 2013, I think you countered 14, and I accepted
It's
14.
gonna change again by tomorrow?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, Mike, I understand, and I've spoken with Mickey about this. I understand, and this kind of comes full circle to what Councilman Hug brought up about a month ago about repealing or rolling back the sales tax. There's no question that our local Joliet businesses are having a difficult time competing, especially businesses that are on the border of other communities that have a significantly lower sales tax. I think that's exactly what's happening here. He's being priced right out of the market. So, that's all I want to say.
Well, maybe we should look into
First of all, and I'll certainly let the two parties, the city and you folks, I'm not extremely comfortable with a one-year automatic cancellation of the program. None of us here have, most of us don't have the experience in business, and none of us here have a crystal ball to say what's going to happen with the economy from year to year. And I don't like a business being automatically having the deal shut off, regardless of whether we have another 2008. But I'll leave that up to both sides to discuss tomorrow. I'm prepared as a local business owner for 20 years, understanding the difficulties this man's going through, this business. I could walk in Mickey's front door, and I'm entering from Joliet, buy myself a six-pack, walk out the back door, and I'm literally in Crest Hill. So whoever mentioned, what about all the other gas stations in the city? There are no other gas stations that fit that very unique description. This council also saw fit to take a brand-new company and give them 20 years unfettered tax break. And I don't know why we're dragging this local 50-year business over the coals on this. I personally am prepared to give them a 10-year. 10-year, no revisit, because I understand the business principles that are being applied here. I'm not comfortable, and again, I'll leave it to both sides. It doesn't make sense to put the benchmark down. The concept is he's already dropping in sales. It's going to take 3 or 4 years to try to bring it back with the new marketing approach. So if everybody thinks that, hey, look, if we lose 5,000 or 10,000 in the first year, we're going to take it away from them, then we'll have another Clark gas station, a vacant, ugly eyesore. These people are in dire need of help. They're on the corner. They're extremely unique in their position, and there's nobody else out there that I'm aware of that has the same position. And they've been a loyal 50-year business who fought tooth and nail, from what I can see, tooth and nail, to stay in business in Joliet since the great collapse. And now it's catching up to them, and they need help. If we can't help our local businesses, if we can't help our local residents, let's fill up shop, because we're not doing the community any favor. I'm ready to move on a 10-year, no questions asked policy, and if somebody's got another option, that's fine.
As a 50-year business owner, I've been through the hard times. Mr. Pakushka come to us and says with this deal, he feels the city is not going to lose any tax money. All I'm saying is fine, we'll give you the deal, but we want to make sure it does not cost the city money. Now, if he thinks by lowering the gas and raising the price on what he sells inside, he's going to make out fine. I don't have any problem with that, but I don't want to give him a 10-year without us having the right to stop it if the city starts losing tax money. We just hired a new finance director. He's going to come to us with his recommendation, I'm sure. I think we need to really look at that. We've got a lot of money that we owe on, and before we start giving money back, we need to take a look at his recommendation. But I have no problem if Mr. McCusker says his income is going to increase, then he should have no problem with this benchmark and meeting the benchmark.
Mayor?
Yes.
I have to echo Councilman Hugg's sentiments here. You don't have to be a smartass. I think at the end of the day, and I think I brought this up at our last meeting, why is it that every single council meeting we're making changes and we're debating this in front of the public for one, which is fine, but we have no agreement and we're supposed to vote on this tomorrow? This is unacceptable policy.
Well, then we could table it.
But I think we need to.
Mayor?
I mean, when the attorney for the client doesn't even know what's before us, and we're having a debate on it.
Excuse me, that's not correct. Mr. Plyman provided me a draft of the agreement after the last meeting when we were here. Okay, we've been reviewing the agreement. We need to review it one more time. Please, it's not the city's fault,
So what's before us you're comfortable with?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. It is an extremely complicated agreement if you've read it, okay? And my client today requested some additional time. He told me he's been really busy, as a lot of us have been over the last week. In order to get this done, we intend to come here tomorrow. Jeff and I are going to get together tomorrow and review this, and we'll be coming to the council tomorrow. So it's nobody's fault that there's no agreement here or anything like that, seriously.
I think we owe due diligence to our taxpayers. I think what we're going to vote on, there should be a window of opportunity for the public to comment so we all understand, especially as an elected official. That's my problem.
Well,
The second issue is, so I can finish this, we have a committee structure, as Councilman Girl indicated. What came out of committee, I understood, was going to be a 9-year with a 3-year review every 3 years. Now, all of a sudden, somewhere in some other meeting or whatever, we're coming out with this whole new benchmarking. We're coming out with a 9-year, 1-year review. I mean, I'm confused.
Wait a
Councilman,
minute, Jeff.
the
What come
finance-
out of committee was what I recommended it.
Right.
If they don't meet the benchmark after the first year, it automatically is over. Now, they've negotiated, and they're saying that if it doesn't meet the benchmark after the first year, then it comes back to this council to decide. But if it doesn't meet the benchmark in 2 years, it's automatically over. So there was not a 3-year without any review that come out of the finance committee
It was a
meeting.
9-year with 3 and 3, if I read the minutes correctly.
But it was,
Was it discussed?
yeah, it was discussed in committee.
You
John was
remember-
there, I
you
brought it up.
remember that?
I was.
didn't read it in the minutes.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and check the minutes that what was actually said, but there were a number of things, and Councilman Turk was obviously there as well. There were a number of scenarios that were discussed. My understanding, and there could be a difference of opinion, my understanding was it was a 9-year deal with a 3-year look. That was my understanding. And then I know it was brought up by the mayor about looking at it every year. Some committee members weren't comfortable with that. And then my understanding was that Jeff and Mike were going to get together and try and fine tune this deal. So
I think that's an accurate representation, and I think the mayor, in all honesty, before the council, made another accurate comment to earlier. The real question, and it becomes of this 9 years, 3 years, 1 year, whatever, the question probably for the council is, do you want this agreement to sunset by vote of the council, number one? Or do you want it to sunset automatically if you don't meet a benchmark.
and
That's the real critical thing. And, you know, certainly our position right now is we are happy with the council, with taking it back to the council and letting the council decide if they want to terminate it. But probably, I don't know yet, maybe not happy with saying it automatically terminates, especially after 1 year. But that's for my client to decide today, tomorrow. I'm going to get with Mr. Plyman tomorrow. We're going to intelligently review this. I'll get with him as we always do, and we'll be prepared to address it tomorrow night in a cogent, intelligent, and cooperative manner.
You go first. Thank you. Mike? I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, this could be probably a bit more palatable to me because he is a 50-year owner. If we could put in there, the special use only goes to Mr. Makuska Oil, can we do that? Makuska's business, and then if it's sold, then if the new property owner wants special use, they have to come back for that. Is that something we could
Certainly, I'll bring that to his attention. I understand where you're coming from. You know, Jeff happened to have to make the remark earlier, I think, correct. It really shouldn't matter that it's Mr. Makushka. It should matter whoever owns this particular facility cannot compete in this location. Now, whether it's Mr. Makushka or BP Amico, because it really should run with the property. That would be our contention. But I'll bring that request to him, and we'll see if he would like to limit it just to himself. I mean, that's
Well, we don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. I mean, that whole thing area could be changed, and you may not need a special use permit in 10 years, or 9 years.
I don't know.
That's because I was around when they were talking about 5, 10, 3 with review, so on and so forth. So now this has changed back to 10, and that's what I'm thinking now. Thank you.
Yeah, my only question to Mr. Hanson was, so at this point in time, you're not asking for a table?
No, I'm not.
But depending on how negotiations go tomorrow and what your client agrees on and doesn't agree on, there could be a possibility tomorrow, we don't know.
We want to come tomorrow and have a vote on this matter, absolutely.
One of the deadlines we're all facing here is the state administers sales tax. The city doesn't. And under the state's rules, if a city and a business owner chooses to enter into a sales tax agreement of some sort, you have to let the state know either by the end of September or by the end of March if you want them to implement it. And you only have those 2 windows. So if we miss the September window, we have to wait till March. So it's a 6-month delay in the incentive being extended to the business owner and for us to be able to impose the business district tax. That's why September is, if we can get it done, we ought to get it done.
Absolutely.
You know, the issue of how the agreement terminates, this entire agreement really isn't the proposal of the administration. I believe the city manager was placing it before the council for their consideration. This concept and proposal originated at your level, not Mr. Hawks. But it appears the biggest open issue is how do you protect the city's interests if the business taxes decline significantly in the future if this incentive is extended. And what I was trying to do in the draft is address Mr. Hanson's concerns. He would like to make it hard for the city to terminate the agreement and require you to take a vote every year to do that. And I understand that. That's in his client's interest. It might not be in the city's interest. It certainly would be in the client's. And so I thought it might be appropriate to let it go Mike's way, at least for 1 year. But if we have a chronic underperformance problem where people can see plainly that the agreement isn't working out as it was promised or intended, that we have a bad deal. And so the agreement ought to be set up where, for the city's sake, that it could just die a natural death, understanding that Mr. Hanson could always bring it to the council should he choose to do so. So he'll always have a remedy. I'm just looking to be fair a little bit and try to split the baby somewhat in what the environment might be should circumstances suggest that the agreement needs to be terminated.
I don't think that I've ever known any agreement that the city of Joliet has right now that, for example, that just automatically terminates. And I would think that members of the council, whoever they may be, no matter who the people up here or not, if you see a bad business deal, you're going to terminate the agreement. I got to believe, you know what I mean? And so therefore, if it's so-called, and it's not my way or Jeff's way, it's the council's way here, you know what I mean? And I think we should get away from that a little bit. I think it works, whether it's, just automatically terminate, I don't think is within the spirit of where we came to this agreement from the beginning, very simply.
But the meeting we had in my office with yourself and Ms. McCushka, when I told him that it should terminate and he agreed to that.
He'd agreed after 3 years.
No.
Yeah.
No, I says if it doesn't meet the benchmark after the first year, then it's terminated.
I believe he would not, I think he had a different understanding, Mayor, I think.
Mayor?
That.
Yes.
First of all, Jeff, I appreciate the cover on splitting the baby you might offer, but it's always in the best interest of the city for us to be called out and vote on an issue. I don't need to hide behind an automatic sunset. I need to do my job. The privilege I've been given by the fellow citizens to look at what's going on, as Mr. Hanson just said, and make a decision, and then vote on it. And if people don't like the way I vote, then guess what? They vote against me. I'm out there. I'm out in front of it. All of us should be. We don't need an automatic sunset. For tomorrow's meeting, if I might request, Jeff, could you please bring us each a copy of the 20-year no frills or no holds barred agreement we did south of town? I want to compare them side by side. Thank you.
Mayor, I have one more question. Just for clarification, Jeff,
Yes.
say for example, the property is sold to not another gas station, someone wants to build a grocery store there. They take the tanks out and everything. If that special use goes to the permit, does that grocery store get that tax break?
The agreement terminates if there are no sales of motor fuel.
Okay, all right. But what if a Costco was there and it sales in motor fuel, they would get that same break?
And we would get the 1% tax.
Okay.
Might be a great deal.
Okay, good. So we'll work on that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Next on the agenda is Council Memo 44314. This is a special use permit to allow a U-Haul truck rental business with outside storage for up to 4 trucks at the Marathon Station at Larkin and McDonough on the west side of Joliet. We did have the owner here at the beginning of the meeting. And while he's coming up, essentially the proposal is to allow up to 4 trucks or trailers, U-Haul branded, to be stored on site and leased out of the Marathon facility.
Yes, sir.
And this is, I believe, is Sid Kanda.
Sid Canada, yes.
Well, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to my
Yeah,
comment.
it's actually there's no U-Haul around. We're like in 3 or 4 mile radius. Other than that, it's helping. I have 2 employees. They're just doing only U-Haul, so that's helping them with the job. Plus, it's helping community because there's nothing around. So, and we have more than enough parkings there to help the 3 or 4 trucks.
Any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. What would be the difference between this outside storage of the U-Haul and the one we recently rejected?
Well, I think the major difference is location. This is McDonough and Larkin, a heavily commercialized area right off the interstate. There was no neighborhood opposition. In fact, 2 members of the Idleside neighborhood actually came and supported the proposal. And I think the neighborhood just views the area a little differently here than the objection we received on Reed Street.
All right, thank you, fair enough. Okay.
Mayor,
Sure. Go ahead, Jay.
I noticed, I'm sorry,
no.
Terry.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's a residential street right behind.
Right behind it, yes.
Yeah, so those individual neighbors been contacted? Because I know sometimes we lose, some of the neighbors by sending, 300 feet, 500 feet or
Yeah.
something? So do we know the ones that's immediately behind you?
They do come here and they actually supported us, the
ones
last
that-
meeting,
the
yes.
right behind. And then it was a U-Haul down the street at because I rented one.
They used to
don't have it no
have a
more?
shell, yeah, so they quit.
Not at the Shell, on the same side of the street. I don't know what kind of station it is. They changed the name.
Citgo used to have
Citgo.
them, but they
Right.
don't have enough
They don't have
spot
them
there,
anymore?
like they have only one parking for a customer and a U-Haul. We
And where
have, like,
you're gonna park on the
on the certain
South
side
side.
of here, yes, south side of by the
McDonald Street
McDonough,
side?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I was looking at the zoning board minutes, and usually have special conditions like fencing and things, and I didn't see that in those conditions. And since there is a neighborhood around there, and as you come into the city, you know, you would see that, would you be objecting to putting a 6-foot fence up there to hide these trucks from the neighbors? So they're not looking at trucks all day, and, you
Right.
know, nice decorative fencing, 6 foot, and then on the side of McDonough as well.
Actually, there is a lot behind where the trucks would be. So the people that are behind were at the last meeting with all of us, and I'm U-Haul manager.
What is your name, please?
Tanya Emmert. There is a lot behind there, so they necessarily don't see the trucks.
Well,
They
I
see
saw
more
the
of the
aerial,
grass
there is
and
a
more of
lot,
that.
but it's open.
Yeah, they don't necessarily see the trucks. Like I've actually personally been in some of those houses back there, and you don't actually see the trucks from their houses. You see the lot, you can see the side street here. And
McDonough,
like
you
when
mean?
the trucks are parked up against the building, you don't see the trucks. You see the traffic coming down the street, you see the traffic over here, but you necessarily don't see the trucks.
May I ask a
They're more-
question, Mayor?
It's more open.
Does the Marathon property own the vacant lot immediately east of the gas station? That fronts on Emery Street?
Yes,
Yes,
So the gas station owns all the way to Emery?
yes, the back lot and yes.
yes.
Okay.
Mayor, I got
But would you be opposed to that?
No, if you guys need it, we can do it. No, not a problem. Yes.
Because I'm just thinking, if you decide to expand that business, then you're gonna have more, if you own that lot, you can expand that.
Well,
Marathon Station could expand it.
Marathon, yes, but
There may be some zoning issues with the
Is them-
Emery
yes.
Street lot. It's probably residentially zoned.
Residential, okay.
And maybe some parking could go in there, but I did a quick check with Mr. Haller, and I think we'd support, in addition to the condition, that there be screening installed in the parking area, right, extending from the building.
I'm looking at the up
Yes.
from the aerial view right now, and I think we need something.
And that would be a solid screening of some sort, a wooden fence,
That's fine.
6 feet in height.
6 feet height. To just covering
Just to
that.
the east of the
to-
parking.
Yeah, to just covering that 3 or 4 trucks where we park it, that's the only area you wanna.
What you probably should screen all the parking you have there. There's 7 spaces.
Actually, 3 for U-Haul, so we can do that. We can put a
Yeah,
fence.
it ought to go. There might be an issue as you get closer to the sidewalk, but I think that would be staff's recommendation to add that as a condition, that we have solid screening on the east
East side of
edge of the parking area where the trucks are proposed to be located.
That's fine.
And it probably makes sense to give you a full year to get that going.
Okay.
You're not going to be able to do that right away with winter coming.
No
Yeah,
problem.
so the picture that I'm looking at, sir, are there's 2 houses, their fronts face that area. And I don't see how they couldn't see these
They do.
big trucks there. They
Th-
must.
That's fine. We have no problem. We can put a fence. no
Okay,
problem.
and I appreciate that, so thank you very much.
Thank
We'll
you.
add that then?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question. Sure. Mr. Haller, I didn't hear a verbal, and maybe you shook your head. Councilman Morris indicated, how many feet around the facility did we send a mailer on this to?
300-foot notice to all those residents that would be affected by this.
Just because I heard staff mention, and also the applicant, that the neighbors were in support of it, and I'm looking in the minutes from the meeting, and I see a resident from Margaret, Caesar, Stryker, and Luna, and if you actually look where the actual establishment is, the next street over is Emery, so it looks like in Morris, and nobody from those areas actually came to the meeting.
Usually you hear from Emery Street if they have a problem.
So I just want to make sure that we're not getting another situation where, we approve something and the neighbors come to us and say, oh, we didn't know anything about it, so.
Well, as Mr. Haller indicated, you not only have 300-foot notices, there's also sign posted on the property. And those steps would have been taken in this case, too.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Next item is Councilman 44514, and that's a resolution approving an amendment to an agreement the city has with Will County to provide additional water and sewer service to the Ridgewood area. In this particular case, we have a neighborhood located on the east side of Briggs, on the far east side of Joliet, that's in unincorporated Will County. It's in an area just east of the Ridgewood neighborhood. And that area currently receives its water from a private water association, but its facilities are no longer viable. And we do have municipal water facilities nearby. And what's suggested here is that in partnership with the county would pay for the extension of the city system into this neighborhood. We would then accept ownership and operation of the facility, and we would enter into individual agreements with each of the property owners under which they would be entitled to receive city water and sewer, it looks like, on the condition they comply with our rules and regulations and bill payments and that sort of thing. And we would also have the right under that agreement to terminate service for non-payment should that situation occur. We've done this a couple of times now with the county up in the Ridgewood area, and it seems to help the neighborhood. So that'll be up tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Sure.
So any upfront capital costs would be from the county?
The county is paying for all the capital. We'll take over operation. We'll keep it in good repair and deal with customer issues and that sort of thing.
And as with the other projects, like you said, we've done in that area like that, they should be self-sustaining.
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
That's right. Next item is Council Memo 44614. And actually, I believe we have 4 council memos which really deal with the same project. And that would be 446, 447, 448, and 449. Under the first 3, we are receiving a permanent easement for public utilities for the extension of the Route 6 sanitary sewer improvements. The grantors are Hollywood Casino, Shanahan Park District, and a private business. The 4th arrangement, Council Memo 44914, is a little different in that the Forest Preserve of Will County actually owns the right-of-way. They've agreed to make it available under their policies, and this is a quirk in state law, I believe, that applies to Forest Preserve districts. They're not allowed to grant the easement, and so their practice is to grant a long-term license agreement. It gives us the same right to occupy the right-of-way strip for the project. The next item is 45014, and that's a resolution of approving a bond record-keeping policy. This is an item which will be addressed by the Finance Committee tomorrow night, but we've been advised by our longstanding bond counsel, Chapman and Cutler, to adopt a resolution which memorializes business best practices for record-keeping in connection with our various bond issues. Essentially, our finance director / city treasurer would be appointed a compliance officer. And then under the resolution, that compliance officer would have responsibilities in connection with record keeping and reporting to various agencies in connection with all our bond issues. Council Memo 452 through 460. 452 through 462 are all bids and contracts. I know Public Service probably reviewed them tonight, and we'll have a report on them tomorrow. Unless there's a question about any of those, I do want to call your attention to 45714. This is something that I don't believe went to a committee, and it's a request from the police department to purchase a vehicle for the Tri-County Auto Theft Task Force. That's a multi-jurisdictional police agency, and under the intergovernmental agreement, we provide certain services to the group at state expense. In this particular case, it's our responsibility to procure a vehicle. Sufficient funds were budgeted for that purchase, and again, it will all be reimbursed through a state grant. The vehicle being recommended for purchase, I believe, is a Ford Explorer at approximately $25,000 through the state program, which happened to be the low bid. Local car dealers were permitted an opportunity to bid on the price and couldn't beat the state number. That's 457. 458 is a fire department item. Again, I don't believe it's going to Public Service or Finance. In this particular case, the fire department has received from the the Will County 911 system, essentially, a very significant grant that will provide 100% funding for the replacement of all the computer equipment in our fire department fleet. So all the trucks, the engines, the ambulances, they all have computers in there now, mobile computers, and all the equipment will be replaced under the grant. The equipment we currently used, we initially installed back beginning in 2008, so it's probably time for an upgrade, and again, funded by the 911 board. So that's item 458. The only other item I think I need to call your attention that we haven't handled yet is a proclamation. There will be
I had
an
a
event,
question on
Take Back the Night.
I had a question on the one you just described, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
You know, I feel like, and I know we did, we visited this issue on a multi-auto purchase some time back. And again, these numbers aren't drastically far apart. Is there any way to keep it local, or is there something precluding us this time?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know if we do have a low bid that was the state, and this is an interagency agreement, so we might have a complication there.
Because of the state funding through the grant?
Exactly right.
Fair enough.
That's what, if it was just ours, we'd have the ability to, call it a tie.
Right. I understand now.
Okay.
Jeff, I have a question on that too.
Yes, sir.
If I read this correctly, if you look at the one for the Tri-County Auto Task Force, and then the one that we approved in committee today for the Explorer Utility Department, looks like it's the same specs according to the sheet here. Why is it that the Auto Task Force is $25,297 for one, and then the other two from Public Services are $27,000?
I don't believe they are the same vehicles. I think they're outfitted a little bit differently. The state program has a menu of option choices, and Tri-County Auto wanted its vehicles outfitted in a certain way.
So it's cheaper?
So it's a little bit cheaper based on the options selected by Tri-County. The options selected by the department were a little different, and so you had a different outcome, and it actually allowed us to keep it local. Rod Baker Ford.
Gotcha, thank you.
Again, the final item before we get to citizens to be heard is a proclamation. The proclamation will deal with the Take Back the Night event scheduled for October 2nd at Memorial Stadium. Robert?
A quick question before we move there.
Sure.
Jeff, if I might ask you a quick question. I don't know if you saw the article, and I didn't bring it with me in details. There was a community, and I want to say it was outside Illinois. There was some kind of a, was it Lamont? Oh, I take it back then. No, it wasn't Illinois, Lamont. Yeah, there was a ruling on the Open Meetings Act and asking for names and addresses. How does that affect us now? Or is that still being litigated?
Well, I don't think it's going to be lit. What I read, same media reports, the village of Lamont had a policy of requiring a party choosing to address the council to disclose their personal residence address, and someone refused to do that, and the village declined to let that person address the council or village board. And the public access counselor, which is an administrative agency of the state, it's not a court, it's an administrative agency of the Attorney General, said that, in their opinion, that it's impermissible to deny access to an elected body on a condition such as disclosing personal residence address. So let's assume that opinion is a valid statement of the law. And again, it wasn't written by a judge, it was written by a lawyer, a state lawyer. It probably would make sense to follow that here and to continue our practice of requesting that information, but not conditioning the right to speak based on compliance with that. So if a party chose to decline, just like if you want to give testimony at the Zoning Board of Appeals, you raise your right hand and give an oath. You can decline to give an oath, and you're still permitted to testify to the zoning board. And I would recommend that the council, if faced with that situation, allow a party to speak, and everybody knows that party chose not to divulge their personal residence.
Okay, thank you.
Robert?
behalf of the reasonable thinking human beings among the people of the state of Illinois who reside here in the Joliet Will County area community, I extend to you all again our greetings of peace and friendship.
Excuse me, Robert, could you please use the mic? I couldn't hear you. I don't know if anybody else can.
No, I had a difficult time.
I'm going to be real brief. Earlier this day, I had a brief discussion with the mayor concerning a particular program that.
Excuse me, Robert, please.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you. We want to hear you.
Earlier today,
There you
I had a brief discussion with the mayor concerning a particular program that I, along with a number of my fellow social scientists, have put together in order to deal with a particular phenomenon that has developed here in our community, particularly the environmental terrorism. In other words, the intentional trashing of the community. This particular program is called City Civic Youth League Program. The information I just gave to you gives you a general idea of what it's all about. Right now it's at its rudimentary stage of development, and I had thought about some of the suggestions that the mayor had extended to me early today, which we're going to take into consideration and I'll get back with the city council. But in the meantime, I would like to put something on you all's mind. The cause of this intentional trashing can be traced back to a particular program. And everybody's rating different type of programs. One of the things we looked at was where did this particular situation evolve from? And we looked at a number of things. We went on the followed the Yellow Brick Road trail to find out the origin of certain items that we see scattered throughout the community, such as Newport cigarette boxes, red plastic cups, styrofoam cups, white paper plates, white forks, different things like that set up in a particular design throughout the community. Even go to courthouse, you'll find all kind of debris like that around in a particular way if you're really paying attention. So in our travels, we went to different places, Ottawa, Springfield, the Quad Cities, and then we went to Chicago. Came to the realization that, you know, the bulk of this information, the bulk of this debris is coming from Chicago, particularly areas that had been involved in dispersing some of the awards from the states. When I say ward of the state, I'm talking about the individuals that are on the Section 8 program, transferable Section 8 program. So we looked at that and said, well, okay, well, somebody has to be financing this particular effort of environmental terrorism, and what could be the motive behind it. So we came up with a way to address it, because a lot of the youth are being manipulated into participating in this antisocial behavior. So I would like you all to take time to review that information. We're going to be staging some series of discussions during the month of October at the Joliet Public Library about this particular program. But it's called the Joliet Will County Area Inner City Civic Youth League Program. And it's to promote and encourage charitable, civic, and educational activities among the youth, the Joliet Will County area community, economic disadvantaged, and homeless community members, which are designed to increase the number of available opportunities for the historically underutilized youth to evolve into becoming responsible, effective, and efficient contributor participants towards the spiritual, social, political, and commerce growth and development among the inhabitants of the Joliet Will County area community. So in the meantime, we'd also like to bring to the attention of the City Council that there exists a need to summons a number of the various organizations in the communities that's really adversely affected by this environmental terrorism, and try to move them to become more actively involved in engaging in weekly neighborhood environmental scenery cleanup details, where I'll take on a form of lining up all the youth in front of them and marching through the area and picking up everything that don't grow on a regular basis to socialize the youth into becoming more socially responsible for the upkeep of the environment. And with that said, I will step away from the mic, and we'll get back with you at a later time.
Thank
Thank you. Anything else? Joseph? Yes.
Pardon me for my dress, but I want to go along with something that Mr. Webb was talking about in a little different area. About, if the council will allow. About 2 weeks ago, I was walking at one of my favorite parks that the Forest District keeps up over on Black Road, Ingalls, and Essington Road. I was walking along a beautiful Sunday morning, and I'm looking up in the air, and I see us twinkling. Thought maybe I'd go on goopy. I walked a little more, looked up again, I could see the twinkling. I'm looking up in the air, and two ladies stopped, said, "What are you looking at?" So I said, "Take a look up there." So they looked up, and the lady said, "That's a drone." I said, "How do you know it's a drone?" She said, "I've seen drones before, and that's a drone." It got me wondering, and it got me a little bit, who, what, why, where, when. Who can put a drone in the air? When, why, what for? We currently have a situation in this country where there's a lot of people that come in that hate us. They hate our kids, they hate our schools, they hate our churches, they hate us, they want to hurt us, and they've done it before. I'd like to know who can conduct a drone flight and why, and what the city's responsibility, or if they have anything to say about it. Someone needs to be seeing who's doing it, why they're doing it, where they're doing it, when they're doing it. In my opinion, it's a situation that requires some, at least to look at it, to see what's going on with it. Sound a little nutty, but we've got too many crazy people that want to hurt us, and I think we need to look at it in some way, shape, or form. I would ask to just remand us to land use or somebody to take a look at it and see what our responsibilities, what our rights are. And I brought this open, Mr. Webb brought this open with environmental terrorism and local terrorism. It sounds crazy, but it really bothers me. I think we need to be looking at that. What are our responsibilities? What are our rights? Appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Thanks, Joe. Yeah.
real quick. No, I appreciate that, Joe. The county recently, didn't they have some articles and people were talking about it? Can we check with the county and see if that's any of their equipment?
Sure.
All right. We
Maybe,
can start there.
I don't know if it falls under the purview of the police department. So we'll look into it.
Actually, you can get a license through the FCC to use a drone if they're going to transmit any type of video. You can order them off the internet and have that. As long as you apply for the license, you have that ability to. A lot of private businesses are using it now, and they're using it for marketing as well, recording video and transmitting. But the FCC does regulate the licensing for that type of usage.
Anything else?
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, I need maybe a 5-minute closed session for litigation.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.